add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
The problem is most HR people think that they're not responsible for technology.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the airwaves. This is Hiring on All Cylinders, live from HR Tech 2017. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Britt Ryan once again. Britt, woohoo! We're back. We're ready to go. And to be honest, I'm pretty excited for the next guest that we have. But before I do, I have to ask, Jason, I've been looking for that book that you talked about last year on the podcast. I think the title was Silo Exacerbation. Did you ever get around to writing that?
No, I have not written my exacerbation book yet.
Darn it, man. I was Barnes & Noble let me
down. The fact
down.
that you pulled that out.
Oh, yeah.
Embarrassed?
Sorry.
Hello, audience. I'm red.
I remember hearing that last year and just being like, that has to be remembered for all.
That's a good name for a book.
Exactly.
Silo Exacerbation.
Oh, man. Well, all kidding aside.
Brett's not going to comment.
Well, no, you can still copyright the title.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Yours.
It's a clean book.
Yeah.
Very clean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all kidding aside, Jason is a standard in the HR tech space. He has participated in a number of sessions already, and will be doing more, if that's correct in my understanding. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Just to kind of start off, tell the listeners, Jason, what exactly do you do, and what makes you excited to come to HR Tech every year?
Yeah, so the name of the company that I'm CEO of and founder of is Leapgen. And what Leapgen is we're a management consulting organization that really helps helps enterprises of all shapes and sizes, but mostly large enterprises, make decisions. And, simply put, decisions around what should their strategy be, what's their vision around all of HR and workforce technology, down to how do we deploy in a way we're going to get people to use the stuff, and to truly, how do we measure success in today's world? So, completely vendor agnostic, not tied to any vendor. We don't do the technical implementation so that people don't say, oh yeah, of course you're saying that because you do the implementation.
Sure.
So really, agnostic advisors across the board when it comes to HR and human capital solutions.
Yeah, it's funny to me because I've worked in really big companies, and we were actually talking with someone from J&J yesterday. I was saying, when you work with these large enterprises, it's like trying to turn the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
And that was always my greatest frustration, is all of the different players that you need to get involved, and all of the different people that you need to influence in order to get like small things over the line.
Yep.
So having sometimes an outside resource to just be able to sort of see things from a different lens can really keep things moving.
And really an equation of success.
Yeah.
So, like the panel I did yesterday, for example, one of the keys was, hey, here's our three customers that have been uberly successful in deploying what we built out. One took 4 years, one took 3 years, one took 5 years, maybe a little too long for my taste, but they eventually did it.
Sure.
So, there's nothing more gratifying than to build a strategy and then to eventually see it come to fruition, like for those large enterprises.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
That's the difference too, right? 3 to 5 years. I'm looking at things happening in 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, and things are
little Intella,
absolutely.
right?
Well, things are getting much faster, and I tell people 5 years ago we used to build our strategies with, we used to tattoo them on us, with ink, and now I think we live in the. No, now we live in the.
I know this podcast is on fire.
So
It
that was
on fire.
like a single whoop of a fire alarm.
Yeah.
But it seems to have
It
stopped.
goes back to silo exacerbation.
Exactly.
So
people.
we started with the concept of the ink tattoo.
Sure.
Now we live in the world where it's henna tattoo, because I need to be able to wash it off and I need to be able to change it, on the fly.
Yeah.
And it's much different than it was, even 5 years ago.
I think there are a lot of people in the world who wish that they had chosen henna.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because the removal's a hard process. Not speaking from experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No,
neither would I.
No.
Oh man, yeah, and I think the ability to kind of go back and iterate is an important aspect. And I remember us actually talking about the 3 I's: innovate, imagine, and then kind of moving the industry forward. Do you think iterate should be added on to those I's?
I think iterate has to be added on, but I think that it's more as long as we're iterating around innovation, I think that's what's key. So another I. So if we go back to the I's, iteration just to iterate sometimes we're, chasing our own tail.
Yeah, of course.
But to really be in this space where, people are the most important asset, talent is fast moving, the technology is moving faster than ever, the way that people actually decide what they're going to accept to use from a technology standpoint is what they get as consumers. Like, it has to be iterative, but it has to be tied to the innovation that's going on. So, you watch an iPhone 10 launch and says, hey, facial recognition is going to be a key component of passwords.
Yeah.
If not every one of these vendors here is not thinking about that today, they're already behind. Because that every single employee is going to be saying, seriously, I have to remember a password? Like, I don't have to do that in the consumer world. So, we have to iterate, but it has to be smart iteration tied to innovation.
Can't just be iteration for iteration's sake.
And oftentimes we do that. We have to keep the busy work going, but it doesn't tie back to that long-term value.
Yeah.
I would think, too, when you see all of this innovation happening and knowing that sometimes the larger the company, the longer and the slower it is, who are the people that you partner with? Like you said, you don't do the technology piece, but are you helping them in terms of you're going to have to pull from so many different people, marketing, from IT?
Oh,
right?
my gosh. Yeah. No, one of the biggest problems in HR or workforce technology today is the fact that, I hate to use the term again, but it is very siloed.
Yeah.
And as the world starts to look at HR from the outside in, instead of the way we've looked at it in the past, from the HR out, all of a sudden you realize when you look in, I as an employee don't care if I'm talking to the recruiting department, the performance department, the marketing department, the IT department, the payroll department. I don't care. And in fact, in 2 years, I'm going to talk into my device and say, I want to check my pay stub. I'm not going to navigate to payroll. I'm not going to navigate to HR. I'm not going to navigate to benefits. So we, as an industry, have to break down the silos. And through design thinking and persona-type development, we're able to say, employee manager, they don't care about that stuff. So we have to remember that when we design processes, and now, not just processes, but conversations as we move into the world of bots, that, guys, silos don't work. So the exacerbation definitely goes away.
Yeah.
We're done with that word for the podcast. Thank you.
We'll see.
Yes.
I have a feeling it might come back in.
No more exacerbation.
So how do you advise folks then to, try to dissolve those silos? How do you go about advising that process?
So there's two things. First of all, from an internal governance standpoint, people have to realize that the capital is the people and the capital is the data. And I need consistent single source of data on my people. If recruiting's keeping one source, learning's keeping another source, benefits is keeping another source, HR operations, whatever that is keeping another source, then all of my data is going to be flawed, and people aren't going to say this is credible. So first, I have to have a governance model that says my master data management model is this. That's what I'm talking about in an hour in my session. The second thing is that when I design my processes, I don't forget, I cannot think about the department. I don't care. If you think about Amazon, there's merchandising, there's distribution, there's shipping.
Sure.
There's so many different things that go on. There's commerce on that one transaction. But we as people who buy on Amazon, we don't care about the departments.
Yeah.
So we have to take that out of HR. We have to take that out of the HR process design and say we're designing for employees who don't care, and that will break down silos. It has to.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to go into them. To design, okay, here's your recruiting process, here's this. And almost every HR process crosses multiple functions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's what we talk about with recruiting, right? I think for us, we're constantly looking at ways of how do we take out the tedious parts so that you can feel more meaningful in your work. And then as you recruit that way and you bring people into the organization, it's much more about, I want to spend my time doing the work that I'm passionate about, not looking for passwords, not figuring out how to sign up for benefits, whatever it is. But it's anything through an employee's life cycle, the easier you make it, the happier they are, the more fulfilled they are.
And we don't help it, though. If you think about it, Britt, you mentioned recruiting. I use this example all the time. If you look at most organizations' candidate experience sites, talent experience sites, we're drinking beer, we're playing ping pong, we've got dogs, we've got cats, horses. I didn't say anything about that. Snails, all that stuff. We've got all that stuff. But then all of a sudden, once I start as an employee, I go to the intranet and it's a link farm.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bunch of links. I can't figure out how to get around. I can't find what I'm looking for. So it's a bait and switch.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the world we live in today, that brand has to be consistent from the talent acquisition side all the way through the ongoing employee experience side, A. And B, I have to stop saying, you know, you said recruiting, nothing wrong with that, but I have to stop saying that. Like,
Interesting.
I don't want my recruiters to just recruit people. I want my recruiters to keep people. I want my recruiters to make sure that my first year rate of staying is higher than 25%.
Right.
Like, and unfortunately, because of the way we're siloed, we're talent acquisition people, not talent advisors.
Right.
And I think I probably mentioned this last year, like, I probably won't get off this mission until I see that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think especially, I think it's unique when you're in a smaller environment like an Intello because we have such a close association to our candidates.
Yep.
But, you know, you look back at, let's say, when I worked at Salesforce, and I would often not meet a candidate. They would be at a building that's 3 blocks away or 3 states or 3 countries away. And so, you know, your ability to really develop a relationship with someone changes dramatically.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we keep throwing technology at the problem, yet it still takes 70 days to hire someone. And it has nothing to do with the technology.
Yeah.
It has to do with the fact that my internal process wasn't optimized before I put the tech in place.
Yep.
Absolutely. So since we are at HR Tech and we're talking about vendors and all that jazz, I do have one question about that. HR Tech has traditionally been dominated by a handful of large players.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Please.
Why do you think there's HR Tech? Like,
It's
why
an
do you think
interesting
there's a
question.
conference called HR Tech instead of just HR? Like, when do we reach the point where we actually realize that technology is so pervasive in the world we live in that why do I call this HR Tech?
Well, I think part of it is that, you can also just talk about HR, and I think the people implementing technology or implementing various strategies within a company, but having a conference of just HR would be a little odd, where it's basically people on a conference floor being vendors of themselves. Like, the technology.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is most HR people think that they're not responsible for technology. And that's not the world we live in. Like, you are, are you a technologist?
Sure.
Are you a technologist?
No.
What, do you install your own software?
No.
Yes, you do. You download from the App Store, right?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we are all technologists.
Yeah.
And everyone in HR, if they don't have the lens to say, we're going to think about technology as a digitization tool,
Sure.
and not say, oh, sorry, I can't touch that. These people go to the HR Tech conference and they do it differently. I truly think in 5 years there's not going to be an HR conference like SHRM and an HR Tech conference. Like, HR has to have technology into its DNA.
I totally agree, yeah.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's
and I've
fine.
never said it before.
No.
But it just made me think of it when you said HR Tech.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a very valid point. And I think that the model of conferences around technology, I think you're right. It might not be the model that we'll see forever, right?
As technology becomes the linchpin of everything we do.
Exactly. I mean, the idea of technology being an industry is kind of comical at this point. I mean, if you look in a Salesforce record and the industry is technology, it's okay. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
I mean, every company under the sun, whether it's GE, Campbell's Soup, or Walmart, are hiring any number of roles that probably are technical.
Yeah, and the stuff that, I was having a conversation with Corning yesterday. I mean, Corning, people think of them as glass, or they think of them as the Corningware pots that, our parents used to cook with. I mean, their touch, they're all about touch and digital. They have nothing, very little tied to glass anymore. So, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, it's the question, and frankly, that was a much better tangent than where I was intending. But, I mean, the question I have is, there are a bunch of newcomers that really haven't been in the space before. I mean, you're talking about Facebook, talking about Google with Google Hire. Do you think that we're kind of due for a renewed era of competition in kind of the larger behemoths of the space?
So what we're seeing is we're actually seeing the fact that consumer technology has surpassed business technology.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
And I could stop right there, but I'll
Sure.
go on. But consumer technology has surpassed business technology. We could take that to the next level and say we have better technology in the palm of our hands than what our companies give us to work with. And for the most part, the way we learn how to use technology today is through our personal experience with it, not through the way it used to be done, where we'd go to a training class by the company and then, I can't do that at home because I don't even have access to the stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, the whole thing's been flipped. So it makes sense that the consumer companies continue to enter this space.
Yeah.
Now, At the same time, what I'll tell you is what they don't know is they don't know all the pain and the hardship that HR has gone through for the last 50 years as one of the oldest professions in the world to get to where it is. So it's not just that easy to start getting employees to socially collaborate when they don't trust HR. It's not just that. It's not as easy just to say, oh, we're going to open up a Google search, and of course everyone's going to find the job they're looking for, when I've got issues of poaching talent that I've been grooming inside my organization for the last 10 years. I don't want everyone to see the jobs that are open. So there's a bunch of that stuff that people don't understand, which is, I truly think the world we live in today is about the ratio of any successful technology or strategy is about 45% people, 45% process, 10% tech. I think the tech is now the easiest part, and the Facebook and the Googles, they're going to keep coming in with it. But it's the biggest challenge is still going to be, what is the right fit, capitalized fit for your organization based on the technographic of the worker, the demographic of the worker, digital native versus digital immigrant, all of those types of things. So I think that's, I totally think, just like, you could say, wow, there was a time where you couldn't use iPhones at work, not that long ago. Yeah. Like you use the BlackBerry, and all of a sudden, that disappeared faster than you can snap your finger. I think
the company or the process? Sorry,
yeah,
total joke.
Yeah, but I think you're going to continue to see that those consumer type organizations either come in and look for business or definitely influence. The influence is already, over the moon.
Absolutely.
So what are the shiny pennies, right? Or you talk about shiny objects. So like, what are the things that I think especially what are the tools that you use as you're out on the floor, you're seeing that there are so many new vendors, there are vendors who have been around for a while. How do you sort of look at those things to determine, I'm putting together a 5-year plan for someone. What are the tools that I actually think are still going to be around?
So I think it's very important to avoid the what I call SOS, which is the shiny object syndrome. And really, really important to think about, based on my strategy and my vision, what is it I'm trying to do? There's 4 key priorities that organizations have that I'm going to be talking about in my session in an hour here or so. The first one is, how do I build an anti-fragile foundation? And an anti-fragile foundation is basically when my data is correct, my processes is right, my workflow is right, so that going forward, I can put the sexy stuff on top.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a good foundation, I can't put the sexy stuff on top. It's like talking to Siri or Alexa and not getting a response.
Sure.
Because you don't have a foundation in place.
Right.
So 1, the foundation. 2 is all around experience. And one of the things that we've done in this space for a long time is we've been saying, hey, if the user interface is good, that's a good experience. That doesn't work. So think about going on Uber or Lyft. You order your ride, but the ride never shows up.
Yeah.
Maybe good interface, bad experience.
Right.
Ordering a product on Amazon, good interface, bad experience. HR, I might have a great looking sexy tool, but if all of a sudden the stuff that I use it for, nothing happens later, or I'm not getting better as an organization, bad experience. So second, how do I create an experience? Which, our definition of experience is transaction plus interaction, and trying to move people from adoption to addiction with these tools. The third thing is all about, how do I not just automate, but how do I digitize? So many people in this space have taken, with cloud, gone and said, hey, we've moved from client server to cloud, let's take what we have and put it online. That's automation. Digitization is really thinking about, what could we do differently now with mobile devices, with whatever the latest thing is, and say, let's digitize these things and reimagine it and create value for the employee, not for the HR department. So the third thing is all around that digitization. And then the fourth thing, and it doesn't have anything to do with your shiny object, even though we could make it into that, is the reskilling of the function. So I think that the best shiny object to invest in today is reinvesting in the people that do the work in the HR function. So we need marketers, we need storytellers, we need people that understand design thinking, we need people that understand communication, we need people that understand consumer experience. That's what we need. We don't need coders, we don't need report writers, all of that stuff. And most organizations are sadly equipped to deal with it. So if I'm a CHRO and I'm telling someone to go look for a shiny object, I'm looking for resumes right now I'm not looking for new technology.
Wow. So, folks, you heard it here first. The feel-good story of this interview is that the shiny object is inside all of us. Aww. Sorry, that was too much cheese. Too much cheese. But with that, I know that I would love to attend the session. I think I'm going to be sitting here at the desk interviewing a couple more people.
It's all good.
But if you are at HR Tech and looking to hear some great insights, make sure to stop by the mega session. Digital transformation in HR is today, not tomorrow! ! And thanks so much for stopping by, Jason.
Yeah, it's always good to be
Thank
here.
you. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.